Okay, we are live on Facebook and we're no longer in the practice session. And we're having some people join on in. Great. Okay, if you guys are ready, we can go ahead and get started. Great. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Kaylee Wilson, the event director for Midtown Reader, an independent bookstore in Tallahassee, Florida. We're so glad to be hosting Heidi King and Florida Humanities today as we celebrate her newest release, Saving American Beach. We are so grateful for the turnout today, and thank you to everyone who has adapted to the virtual setting, and we hope you guys are all staying safe during this time. Before I introduce our guests any further, please note that we will allow some time at the end of the discussion for questions from the audience. You can submit a question for Heidi at any time during the event just using the QA feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will review it at the end. If you would like to purchase a book, you can order online at midtownreader.com, over the phone, or by stopping by our store in person. We offer contactless pickup and delivery anywhere in Tallahassee for just $5, and we are also happy to ship the books worldwide. With that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Heidi and Florida Humanities. Florida Humanities funds and coordinates public humanities programs and publications that explore the people, places, and ideas that shape our state. Florida Humanities provides grant funding to cultural institutions, brings traveling Smithsonian exhibits to rural and underserved communities, and publishes Forum, the award-winning magazine. Private contributions are critical to sustaining the program of the Florida Humanities. For more information on the organization and how to support it, visit floridahumanities.org. We are here to discuss Heidi's new release, Saving American Beach, and I will now pass it over to Heidi and April with Florida Humanities.
All right. Hi, everybody, and thanks, Kaylee, so much I'm happy to be able to coordinate something for this. I'm April. I'm with Florida Humanities. We are, as Kaylee explained, a nonprofit grant organization in conjunction with the National Endowment for the Humanities. And today we are also a part of the National Book Festival. We are the Florida Center for the Book, which is the state affiliate of the Center for the Book, which is a program run by the Library of Congress. And as you know now, the September 17th to tomorrow, the 26th, the National Book Festival, which is a large conglomerate book festival that the Library of Congress hosts every year, is ongoing, and we encourage you to check out their website through the Library of Congress, as well as the Festival Near You page, where you can find, of course, this event as well as other events across the country that states are hosting. And like Kaylee said, we are here with Heidi. Her book is our Great Reads choice as part of the National Book Festival. Because we believe her book encompasses all the wonderful things Florida has to offer and represent. And I'll just share a couple of things. Saving American Beach is a heartfelt picture book biography illustrated by Caldecott honoree Equa Holmes, and it tells the story of Maureen Betch, an African-American opera singer turned environmentalist, and the legacy she preserved. Maureen loved to go to the beach, but in the days of Jim Crow, she couldn't just go to any beach. Most of the beaches in Jacksonville were for whites only. Knowing something must be done, her grandfather bought a beach that African American families could enjoy without being reminded that they were second-class citizens. He called it American Beach. Artists like Zora Neale Hurston and Ray Charles vacationed on its sunny shores. It's here that Maureen was first inspired to sing, propelling her later to become a widely acclaimed opera singer who routinely performed on an international stage. But her first love would always be American Beach. After the Civil Rights Act desegregated public places, there was no longer a need for a place like American Beach, and it slowly fell into disrepair. Maureen remembered the importance of American Beach to her family and so many others, so determined to preserve this integral piece of American history, she began her second act as an activist and conservationist, ultimately saving the place that had always felt most like home. Heidi has written many books for adults, but this is her first book for children. A graduate of the University of Alabama, she lives in Tallahassee, Florida. Take it away, Heidi.
Okay, so guys, I'm going to share my screen so you can see pictures a little bit better. Let's see. Can everybody pretty much see it now? Is that pretty good? Good. Okay. So I'll start at the beginning. As a girl, Maureen Betch loved the beach. She loved the whoosh of its waves, its blue sky stretching to forever, and the creatures swimming in its tangy sea. But Maureen couldn't go to just any beach. Because of her skin, silken and butter brown, she couldn't eat in most restaurants or visit most bathrooms. There was even a rope in the ocean. One side said colored, the other white. Something must be done, her great-grandfather said. And so Mr. Abraham Lincoln Lewis bought a beach. It was an ocean paradise where his family and other Black people could swim, picnic, and build sandcastles. He believed that a beach should be open to everyone. In no time, American Beach was hopping. Maureen adored her beach. At water's edge, the sandy shore became a stage. For each performance, the wind whispered an endless melody of gull cries and laughter. It made her heart sing. When she grew up, Maureen discovered the same music in the opera. She left her beloved beach to sing stories around the world. From London to Berlin, audiences sprang to their feet, demanding an encore. Brava, they cried, beating the stage with their hands, whipping velvet curtains into rippling waves. But after the crowds went home and the stage lights dimmed, she longed for her beach. When her mother became sick, she packed her suitcase and returned home to care for her. Soon after, her mother died. Maureen spent her days sitting along the shore, wrapped in a blanket of sadness. She sat and sat. So much had changed since her girlhood days on American Beach. Summer houses crumbled, bleached white as fish bones. Plastic bags littered the dunes, tangled in seagrass. The rope dividing the ocean had disappeared. There was no more need for a place like American Beach. Determined to save what remained, Maureen became the caretaker for American Beach. She picked up trash, planted trees, and remembered colorful stories about its early days when Zora Neale Hurston sunbathed on the sand and Ray Charles juked the local joints. She made American Beach her home. Each morning, she bathed in the Atlantic Ocean. Each night, she went to sleep on a chaise lounge to a lullaby of lapping waves. When she needed to think, she climbed atop the beach's 60-foot-high sand dune, her sacred place, one of the tallest dunes on America's east coast. Strong and soft, she named it Nana, a Ghanaian word for grandmother. Before long, builders eyed American Beach as a perfect place for condos. The staccato of jackhammers replaced the whoosh of its waves. Trilling backhoes silenced the wind's endless melody. Maureen was brokenhearted. Nana cried out to her in her dreams, something must be done. She drew a line in the sand. Maureen was saving more than a beach. She pinned protest buttons to her clothes, wore seashell necklaces, and in a burst of creative protest, she grew her hair. 7 feet long and knotted together, a thick rope of silver gray. She draped it over her arm or carried it around in her suitcase. Some days, her hair reminded her of an elephant's trunk. On other days, the curve of the Niger River in Africa. It was hard to tell where the beach lady stopped and her beach began. The madder she grew, the braver she got. She squabbled with city commissioners, wrote letters to lawmakers, and marched to Tallahassee to fuss at the governor. Her letters went unanswered. The beach lady stood in the scorching heat alone. No one cared what the prima donna of protest had to say. More than a few people questioned the beach lady's demands. Others were proud of her pluck. Years passed. Soon, all that was left was a sliver of sand, cocooned by palmettos, hugged by live oaks. People missed the beach. The beach lady inspired others to write their own letters and paint their own picket signs. Together, they petitioned the president, George W. Bush, to sign a law protecting American Beach forever. When the beach lady died, friends and family scattered her ashes on Nana. Her wish came true, to spend forever enjoying American Beach, where a piece of paradise remains and the melody continues.
Great. Thank you so much, Heidi, for sharing your lovely story with us and the beautiful illustrations. I'm just going to do a quick Q&A with a couple of questions so you can share as much as possible about your book. So I guess my first question would be, what inspired you to write a picture book about American Beach, especially since this is your first book for children?
I got the idea for my third grade daughter, and she's now a senior in college, but she was tasked with writing an essay about someone in Florida who she looked up to as a role model. And she stumbled across the beach lady. And after she wrote the essay, it just sort of stuck with me for many years that, this is somebody everybody needs to know about.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing story. And it's great that your daughter was your inspiration to bring a relatively unknown person to your attention, that we can share her story with many others. So I guess, have you ever visited American Beach? What is it like?
I have visited American Beach, and really that was part of the research is, you want to go see where you're writing about and try to learn as much as you can about the person you're writing about. Equa Holmes, the illustrator, also went to American Beach. And so you can find throughout the book in her illustrations, she's a collage artist, amazing. And, she's hidden little things all throughout in her collages and pictures throughout the book that were things that she was inspired by at American Beach.
Yeah, I noticed when I read the book that there are pieces of fabric and old music sheets which tie back into Mavine's experience as an opera singer, which I thought was just so cool and a very unique way to portray the beach as well. So we all know writing a picture book is a lot of work, but what's your process like? How do you write a picture book?
Oh, it never gets easier to write. But, I usually, if I have an idea, I read a lot of obituaries. So I get a lot of ideas about people there. So I always like tuck an obituary away, or if I hear of somebody, I'll make a little note. But once I've kind of decided on a subject, then I'd really like to do a lot of research. And I'll, I could research forever because I love learning about people, and, I'll go visit places. The Florida Archives is an amazing place and has lots of pictures, even online, that you can access, documents, that kind of thing. So I'll do that. And once I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of the subject, then I do try to go and interview people who knew her, who knew about her, who were involved in beach protection and environmentalism, and really kind of try to get a real true sense of who she was or who the person is that I'm writing about. And then finally, I just sit down and try to put it all together. And it can go through many, many, many revisions. Sometimes a revision is only one word. Sometimes it's a rearranging of pages. And then I do a lot of reading aloud to make sure it sounds okay. So there aren't tongue twisters or things that people would stumble across, and it just kind of flows. And then finally, I turn it over to my editor and start the whole process over again based on what she gives, the feedback I get.
No, that sounds, what do you think is the most unique story you learned about Mavine after interviewing people who knew her?
Oh gosh, I mean, could she only have one? I think, and that was, the fact that she grew her hair 7 feet long was just like, oh my goodness. And she would pin these protest buttons in it. And, some of the things that you don't get to put in the book, like her fingernails. She would grow her fingernails out, 20 inches. And,
Wow.
those, she would have those. You can see pictures of her with these really long fingernails. I think the other thing too, that I've talked about a little in the author's note at the back, is she really grew up in a very wealthy, prestigious family and did have a lot of money, but did give it all away to causes that she believed in. And she supported whales. She has a whale named after her. She supported butterfly conservation. One of the most esteemed books written about butterflies is dedicated to her. So, she was a force to be reckoned with. And it didn't matter what she put her mind to, she was going to have a say. And I think that was really the beautiful story about her. But I do think one of the things that I really wanted my daughters to understand and that I appreciated about her is her resilience, and the fact that she did all these great and wonderful things, but her life was not always rosy, and she had some times when she was depressed and down, and we talk about that a little in the book. But I think it's really important for people to know, especially kids, that to do something great is always not a straight journey. Sometimes you do have setbacks, and it can be setbacks that you create yourself or setbacks that just happen to you, family things that happen. But it's this idea of just pushing through and fighting for what you believe in that I think is such an important story.
Yeah, and that actually, your wonderful response kind of ties into the next question I was going to ask you, in that your book talks a lot about being a good steward of your environment, standing up for what you believe in, and just caring about the world around you. And what are some other things we can maybe learn from Maureen, other than her resilience and all the good traits you mentioned so far?
Um, I think despite her very strong convictions, everyone I talked to says that she was so kind and really listened to people and liked people. So I think that's important. I think it's important, especially for kids, that if just because you're a kid, you probably have more intuition than adults about what is right and wrong. Um, for example, in the book, I talk about that line in the ocean. And when my girls were little and we were talking about her, this idea that somebody could put a rope in the ocean to separate people is crazy. And they got it. And the fact that adults did it just shows you how much smarter and more in tune with the world kids are than adults. And so I think that's an important thing. Just because you're a kid, don't underestimate your worth and value and what you have to add to the world. I think maybe the last thing about Maureen that I think is special is just she did continue to inspire people. I mean, people still, she died in the 2000s, and people still talk about the influence that she had on their life in some way.
That's wonderful. In between your book and then the stories you shared about her, not only is she an incredibly unique individual, but just such a powerful individual, and had and you can tell she had a really long lasting effect on the world around her. So more talking about, that your book is the Florida choice for the Great Reads from Great Places roster for the National Book Festival. So how do you think your book, Saving American Beach, embodies Florida? Or what makes it uniquely Floridian, other than the book being set in Florida?
Well, I think there are so many things. First of all, you've got the beaches, and people love the beach. I mean, and the second thing is I love that Maureen is so quirky. And I think Florida is just a quirky state. I mean, don't we have it all? Aren't we just like, I mean, as frustrated as people can be about different things that occur in Florida, I mean, when I go outside my door every day, I'm walking into a jungle, or I don't know what's going to be out there awaiting me. I mean, sometimes I feel like I live in a terrarium. There's so many different kinds of mushrooms that just pop up, or, the tropical plants. Just, we live in such a beautiful place. And I think, I'm biased. I love Florida, and it's my adopted home state. So, I definitely think that is sort of shown in the book. I think this caring about the environment, I think people, we do. I mean, we are outdoors a lot, but I think people do care about the environment, and it's important. We have to balance this idea of tourism and being in the environment, and making sure that, that we are handling things in the right way. And I think this book sort of is a good example of the way that when Maureen saw maybe something was getting out of balance, that she stood up for that. And yeah, just, I think too, Florida is great because of its people. I mean, in the fact that we're so different as an environment, but as different as people too. I mean, we're kind of a melting pot. Isn't that really cool that we have people from all over? I mean, even more so than other, most other states. I love that about Florida. Most people aren't from here. So where are you from? And it's always a fun conversation to have. How'd you get here? Why'd you get here? So I think all of those things maybe make Florida cool. And that's what, this book, thinking about the history in Florida too, and how we do have, maybe it's not necessarily celebrated as much as it should be, but there is a great, deep, rich body of African American history here and Black history that needs to be told and celebrated. That maybe this book is just the beginning of that, hopefully.
No, and it's wonderful, because I actually didn't know anything about Maureen Betch before I read your book, and I felt like I learned so much in just a beautiful way. And your comments about how people from Florida are technically from all over, other states or other countries, that it kind of reflects the collage element in the illustration as well, using all of these pieces from different places to build the beach and build the images, I think is a cool connection. So the last question I have for you is, I know you've mentioned that you're working on another book for children. And so what is it about? And do you know when it might be coming out?
Yeah, so my next one that I'm working on, and we're kind of in the final edit stages with my editor, is about John Bonner Buck, who is the grandfather of bioluminescence. And so basically what he studied was fireflies. He just loved fireflies and wanted to know all about them. And he really moved the science of biology and bioluminescence forward so much. And so that's been a really cool book to work on and research. And yeah, so I'm excited for that one to come out, because of course we have fireflies in Florida too, that I can talk about in there. So yeah.
And do you know when it might be releasing?
I'm thinking it will be, let's see, 21, 23.
Oh, okay.
Takes a lot of time.
Yeah, of course, I completely understand, but we're definitely on the lookout, and we're excited to see your next title, as for as wonderful this one is. I think that's all the questions I have from Florida Humanities. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time, Heidi. It was wonderful to get to talk with you and get this all set up, as well as just introduce your book to more people across the country and across the state.
Well, thank you for having me. I really feel honored to have been chosen.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Kaylee to see if she has any questions from the audience, or anything to wrap up.
That was great. Thank you guys so much. I only have a couple of questions from the audience. So the first question is, what would you tell someone who is looking to mimic what you are putting out? What are your tips to tell them, this type of story?
Well, if you're talking about just in general writing a book, then I would say write the book that you want to write. Find a writer's group, which you always hear. If you want to, every other sport, every activity has a coach. Writing is no different. You can find a writing coach to help you maybe get the words down or structure, whatever you feel like your weakness is. That's always a good thing. And just keep at it, because, this certainly wasn't the first children's book I wrote. And I may go back and pick those others up from earlier, but I can definitely go back and see how my work has changed over time and gotten stronger and better. But also, I think probably the most important thing is you have to find a subject that you can live with for a long time, because you're going to be living with it for a long time. Picture books take a while. You don't get to choose your illustrator, so the editor does that. And you have to be, so that's why it's taking 2 years to get this next book out. You have to give them time to do things, but you just have to settle in and know that you need to really like this person you're writing about or the topic that you're writing about. And you kind of need to know everything you can about that topic, because you're going to get some questions that you'll be like, I need to make sure I know how to answer that. So yeah, that would be my overall tips, I guess.
And so what is your writing technique? Like when you are about to sit down to begin to write or planning to write, what is your technique behind this? Are you a morning writer, an evening writer, like a 2 a.m. writer?
Well, first of all, I will say, I wish I was the person who could get up every day at 5 a.m. and say from 5 to 8, that is my sacred time. I'm not going to be deterred. This is going to work for me. But I could never make that work with a family. I have a husband, I have 3 daughters. And so what I did was I always tried to find time. If I could get away for a week, if I could get away for a weekend, if I could get away for 2 days, even just by myself, and go to a hotel, go to a friend's house that's out of town, and literally write from the 12, 14, 16 hours working on that project. Because for me, it always helped me to get really immersed in what I was doing. And I had that uninterrupted time. So that's how I've kind of done it over the years. Now that my daughters are older, I do have a little more uninterrupted time during the day, but my husband still comes home for lunch and those kinds of things. And so I'm talking about like nobody bothering you, turning your phone off and being truly devoted to what you're doing. The second thing is, for me, is if you sit down and you have writer's block and you can't move forward, then maybe you haven't done enough research. So for me, nonfiction, I really make sure I've done my research. And there are times in the research when I'll think, oh, I can see this going at the beginning. This is how I'm going to start. And I'll make notes so that when I sit down, I kind of have that structure sort of built out in my mind. But research can also be a crutch, because I love doing research. I could research all day long and never get to the writing part. But I do think that does help with the writer's block some, is if you know what you're writing about, and so you're ready and you see a logical beginning, middle, end to your story based on the work that you've done beforehand.
Thank you for that. And so my last question for you is, when you found out that, when Florida Humanities contacted you, what was your reaction? What was your instant in that moment? What were you doing? What was your response?
I mean, I was like, golly, this is like a really big deal, the national, endowment, the National Book Festival, all of these things. I'm like, I've made it. I'm, And then the next day, the book that I've been working on for 1.5 years, my editor and agent were like, it's just not going to work. There's just no way you're going to make this work. And so then I'm like, I'm so awful. I'm never going to write anything ever again. And, so you need these feelings of validation, I think, to help you, because the next day you're going to be like, told that your next book is not going to be good enough, the book that you've been working on or something, the proposal. So I think for me, that was it. It was validation. Okay, this one is great. People love it. Keep going. You'll find something else to write about that people will love. My Firefly book, they love that. So that'll be awesome. So what's the next thing after that? So I think that was it. But I truly am flattered. I mean, just to be recognized by Florida, it's awesome. It's special. So thank you.
Okay, well, Heidi, do you have anything else you would like to say, mention before we close out for the day?
No, other than you can go to Midtown Reader and get the book here in Tallahassee or on their online website. And I think you guys have signed copies as well. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. April, do you have anything else that you would like to say before we close out?
Of course, I just wanted to thank you all for watching and being here, as well as big thank you to Heidi, and as well as to Kaylee for getting all the logistics set up that we can make this happen during the National Book Festival. I encourage you to go to the Library of Congress's website, loc.gov, to look at all the other wonderful offerings from our state and across the country for the National Book Festival, as well as visiting our website at floridahumanities.org to check out all the things that Florida Humanities has to offer across the state, programs like this, as well as some other types of programs. And if you're a nonprofit organization, perhaps checking out some of our current funding opportunities so we can bring programs like this to your area. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great day. And, of course, if you want to pick up Saving American Beach, just stop by our store or visit us online. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.